Hello and welcome to this Relocate Global Think Women event for International Women's Day. I'm Jane Constantinis and thank you very much for joining us. Fiona Murchie is here, of course. She's the managing editor of Relocate Global. And we have a very special guest, an extraordinary young woman with an inspirational story to tell. I'm not going to tell her story. She is Carrie Clark. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see you. Carrie, tell us about you and this very particular journey that you've been on.
Yes, thank you. What a lovely intro. So just a little bit about myself. Obviously, I was at the event last year, so a few people heard my story. Since a very, very little girl, I've always wanted to be an airline pilot. I used to stand in the terminal and look out the window and just see this huge aircraft and think that the two people up the front were the coolest people on the planet. They really were like superheroes to me. I don't think I managed to speak to a pilot without stuttering until I was in my early 20s. So the journey started for me when I got my first pilot's license. So I started training for that when I was 16 and got that 2 weeks past my 17th birthday, which at the time, I'm sure for a very short time, but for the time made me the youngest female pilot in the UK. And then the challenge began to get into the airline industry. There's a lot of training that costs a lot of money, right the way up to around 130,000. It can be done on a budget depending on which school and how you do it. But yeah, it's a lot of money and it's self-funding. And nowadays there aren't so much sponsorships. If there are sponsorships, you still front the money, but there's a possibility of a job at the end and things like that. So it's all changed in the way that it's done. Around 2.5 years ago now, I decided to take the leap. I had a fantastic fleet of women and a few men in there as well, supporting me on the journey to funding and starting flight school. So I quit my job and jumped in and full time since then have been training for different licenses along the way. I'm now fully qualified, so I have what they call a frozen ATPL, which is an airline transport pilot's license. Obviously, we've had a pandemic in the way, which was fun. I was due to have a flight test the morning after Boris shut down the country. So that was challenging. I, in the end, went and purchased a Ford Transit van and went delivering with Amazon full time, 6 days a week, to try and recoup some of the money that this would cost, because I would have to have extra lessons going back before the test again. So I did that, went back and obviously was practicing my flight test while I was delivering parcels. And yeah, somehow through the sort of perseverance and probably stubbornness that I was going to get there no matter what, I've come out the other end with everything I've needed. So yeah, that's where we are now.
Well, very, very, very well done to you. Let's look at how you've achieved this, because there might be people watching, there might be young women watching, there might be parents of girls. How hard has it been?
Yeah, it's been challenging. I'd be telling a lie if I said that it's been a breeze. There's been a lot of tears along the way, a lot of stress. I'm glad that my medical is only once a year, because my blood pressure has, I'm sure, taken a hit. It's taken everything I have to make it happen. And I'm 30 this year, and this has been a dream since a child. And I think if I wasn't so stubborn on that dream, there were many, many opportunities that I could have given up, and there's been many obstacles that could have knocked me off my path. And it was just pure stubbornness, resilience, the motivation, I wanted to live up to everything that the people that believed in me. It's those times when you're struggling to believe in yourself, and we all have those moments, that when other people have believed in you, it just gives you that extra push to get back on your feet and believing in yourself again. And it's taken everything. I would say that it has taken everything to get to this point.
And how much harder has it been because you're a woman?
It's a different journey. I would say the industry has come on hugely from back in the day when, you know, you would get some very, very inappropriate comments. And I couldn't even imagine a world back how it used to be. But there are still some old-fashioned views in there, and you do have to be strong in character to be able to stick up for yourself sometimes, because sometimes these comments, and I think this is with a lot of sort of minority, we are 3% worldwide at the moment, so we are a minority. There are comments that are made in a jovial way, that when you are the minority are hard to take in jest. And I think that takes a strength of character to kind of, you know, not let that determine your journey, but also not let the fact that you are a minority overrun what you're doing. You are standing there shoulder to shoulder either way.
Yeah. And when you say 3%, Carrie, what do you mean by that 3%?
3% of airline pilots worldwide are female.
For women. Okay, thank you. Wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
Now, you've talked a lot about personality traits there, and you've used the word stubborn, and you've used resilience and determination and so on. How much of that was already inbuilt in your DNA, and how much of that was about your upbringing, for example?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've always had a fantastic role model. My mum is an incredible woman. She's very independent, very strong. And from a very young age has always taught me, you know, I can achieve anything if I'm willing to put the work in. And that belief was installed in me from a very young age. If you put the work in and you do not give up, you have to get there somehow. There is a way. And that belief, without knowing probably, has served me tenfold over this journey. Equally, I think there's a natural in myself, in my personality, that because it's harder to achieve, because we are the minority, that almost gave me that extra push that there's no way I'm giving up on this. I'm going to do this. So yeah, I think it's one, how you're brought up, how you have supportive and motivational, inspirational women around you, and two, I think that then builds you into a woman to have that strength to go and want to prove everyone wrong.
Well, of course, you now are that inspirational woman that others are going to look up to. And what you said there is really interesting, that you felt that because it was difficult, because you were in the minority, you had to do it. So was there a sense there of you being a trailblazer, of you leading the way so others could follow?
I think that, yeah, I think, and not sort of in that solo sense, there's a lovely community within flying of women, and you feel like you're serving a multitude of people by achieving it. You're serving almost your younger self, first of all. You're serving the people, the children now, the teenagers now, the young women now, to show them that it's possible, because we've all been there when we haven't believed in ourselves. I think it's a trait that I still, to this day, I'm always battling, that kind of imposter syndrome of how am I here? So you have to push through to show other girls and other women that it is possible, but also to stand as a team with other women that are on that journey, and you know it's difficult too, right? it gives you that extra willpower to kind of go, I've got to do this to help others.
Mm. And so that's your family, and it sounds like you've got a wonderful team, an extended family around you, all on the sidelines cheering you on. What about education-wise? Were you empowered during your school days?
No, quite the opposite.
Mm.
I was very much bullied at school. School was probably the worst time of my life. And still to this day, it was very, very difficult. And when I speak to young girls, I always say, you know, it feels like a lifetime now, but I promise you it will be a very short time in the future. And you just need to get through it and get from school what you need to get from school to go forward and do what you want to do. That's what I did. I got my head down and got the GCSEs that required. I initially wanted to go and do A-levels because there's the understanding that you need 2 A-levels to be in aviation. It's not actually true. You more need finances. If I could go back now and be as strong as I am as a woman now, I would go and do those A-levels. However, at the time, I hated school. I was terrified to go. I didn't want to be picked on any longer. And I decided to find another route. And that was why I went to do my pilot's license, so that I wasn't sort of wasting that time. And I went to get into full-time employment to save up the money for the qualifications I needed. There were a couple of teachers at school that were very helpful, and they were encouraging, but there were also situations that when I was younger, as I say, I'm 30 this year, that when I said I wanted to be an airline pilot, I had a few comments of, it's not really for girls, or that's very expensive, maybe look at something else. There was a lot of sort of strong beliefs that were sort of pushed upon me. But like I say, back to my family and the people that brought me up, they corrected those along the way and made sure that I didn't believe them. So it was all rectified.
And where have you got this incredible resilience that you've demonstrated in telling your story here, to come back from all of these knocks and setbacks and the negativity?
I think this journey, I say so many times to this, any problem now when it comes to me, I go, okay, yeah, no problem, okay. And it's become almost a joke that, of course, it couldn't be straightforward. Let's go for another hurdle. And I have, it's almost like, I believe like resilience is a muscle. You start to get a belief in yourself that it's not even, I think, especially as a woman, it's not even a belief that I'm undefeatable. It's I believe enough in myself that I'm not going to give up, that there has got to be a way that I can find to get around this. And that as a woman gives me strength, because I can't always say that, you know, I'm the best at everything. I'm a genius. I can't walk with that belief every day. But what I can believe is that I will always find a way. And that you have 2 choices when you come up against a hurdle, and it's either allow this hurdle to take that dream from you or to find a way. And there was just no way anyone or anything was going to take this dream. So it was always a case of, I'll find a way.
Sorry, I thought you were going to ask a question there, Fiona. Sorry, I'm rather dominating Carrie's time because I'm so loving her story. What would your message then be to those watching now who perhaps, I said earlier, perhaps they're parents of girls or goddaughters, any connection with any young women? What would your advice be to them as to how they can empower those young women?
I think a key thing for me, which I've learned along the way, and I've tried to install this with anyone that I've met, who have daughters, sisters, any sort of young female that they want to support, to empower. I think sometimes often when we care for someone, we want to see them safe. We want to see them secure. And sometimes going for your dream, going for something that typically people see slightly out of reach, when you care for someone, that doesn't seem like the safe, secure option. And I think when you are looking after someone and looking out for them, friends, daughters, sisters, you have to focus on both sides of that. And it's one, looking after their security, their financial security, their future, where they're sort of hedging their bets and all of that. But you also have to look after the heart and soul of that young girl. And all she really wants in that moment from anyone who is looking after her or behind her is to know that you believe no matter what, she can do it if she puts the work in, and you will be there for her along the way. She doesn't need to hear your concerns as such, because trust me, she's thinking them too. And if she comes to you and says, I want to discuss this, I'm a little bit concerned, can we find a way out? Great. But I guess what I'm saying is, don't impose your own fears on someone else's dream, because I don't think we realize how heavy that can be when we're having those days where we're not necessarily believing in ourselves as much as we should. And I think we take that on so much more when it's given to us, that piece of information or that worry from someone we respect, from someone we love. And we take it as gospel rather than just an idea being thrown out there. And it's not necessarily how it's intended, right? It's just how it's received. And that's why, just something to think about before we speak to sort of the younger generation or any woman going for something that's slightly out of reach.
And I think you had the opportunity to take advantage of some coaching support, didn't you, early on? And this learning how to listen and people supporting you in that way. Would you like to just say how important that was?
To be honest, I think I keep referring to this incredible group of women, because they have been so pivotal in my journey. To have such a strong group of women telling me that they believe I can, and they want me to believe that I can, and that I need to look after myself rather than worrying about everybody along the way first. Right the way from the beginning, when I first got into flight school, my concern was, well, how can I show other people that they can get into flight school? I need other people to know they can. And it was that I've been coached the whole way through by some incredible women to look after myself and to give back when I can rather than constantly. Because I think, and a massive generalization, but I think as women, we always want to give. Yeah. And I'm not saying don't do that. That's incredible. But we have to also give that to ourselves. And the growth I've had as a person in my confidence, the love for myself, and the appreciation of what I've achieved because I've worked hard, it's been a journey on its own. And like I didn't know at 25, if you said I'd be going through this journey, not even just in flying or to make my dream happen, but as a young woman, to understand the importance of believing in myself. And I wouldn't have believed you that I would make such a difference in myself at nearly 30. It's and you can only get that from role models.
Yeah, I think what you said a moment ago, Carrie, about parents or anybody in a position of responsibility, if you like, or influence, our instinct to protect. I think you've hit on something really, really important there, because what parents tend to do in the 21st century, especially, is to try to remove. I've often heard it described as being a snowplow in front of your child, removing obstacles so that they can have a very smooth journey. And of course, what we're not then enabling them and empowering them to do is to develop problem solving skills and the resilience that you demonstrate in bucket loads. Okay, so here's an obstacle. I will find a way around it. If we've removed the obstacles, then they've never learned to get over and round or under things. So I think that's, whilst at the same time, obviously, giving them that belief that they will be able to do it themselves.
Yeah,
we've not done them a service, I think, in this regard.
I think I 100% agree, and I've spoken to people recently, a family actually, where the young daughter was trying to get into university this year, and she didn't get a spot because of the students from the previous year coming into university. There was less spots, therefore she was trying to get into medical school, into university to study to be a doctor, and so she had to get a much higher score that was ever needed before to get in. And I was speaking to the mum, and she was telling me, you know, she's worried for her, and she just wishes that she would do something else. And I've said to her that maybe she should look at, and I can't remember another profession, and I said to her, I said, but does she want to do it? She said, well, yes. I said, so do you believe she's capable of doing it? Well, yeah, she's put all the work. So I appreciate right now, it's hard to see the gratitude, and it really is to have gratitude when there's a problem in front of you is incredibly hard. But is this an opportunity for her to get a life skill at such a young age that she wouldn't have had the opportunity to have? That she now has to prove that she uses this next year to make herself a better applicant, and to show the resilience that she's going to need in the field that she's going into. And all she needs behind her right now is you saying, great, what do we need to do now? What's your plan? I'm here. And it was such a different example, but it was the same situation. Her mum just didn't want her to be in pain. She was crying. She was upset. Like she wanted to get into that university, and she wanted it now. Because up until this point, that's what happens in life. And sadly, life isn't always like that. And it's a great opportunity for the mum to show support, the daughter to learn some resilience. And I said, the other side, she will realise how good this will be for her. But I appreciate that the front end, you don't feel the gratitude so much.
And, you know, it's funny, the pandemic has been instrumental in this, I think, because we as parents, and I mentioned I'm the mother of a 16-year-old daughter, so this is so interesting to me. We, the parents, have been unable to fix things for our children in this pandemic. Things have been taken away from them, and we have not been able to do anything about it. And they have had to learn resilience. It's been forced upon all of us, which is a good thing, isn't it, as you're describing? Yeah,
and I think it's important for us. It takes some time, I think, as a child, if that makes sense, to understand that your parents are human. That your parents are very much on a pedestal of knowing everything for a really long time. And I don't know when it happens, but you suddenly realise that they're learning too. They have no idea. And I think this pandemic's great for every adult going, I've never been in this situation. And it's, again, a great opportunity to show young adults what resilience is, how do we find solutions? We've never been through this. We've never had to find a way around this. And it's posed, if we were to find a positive in all of this, it's posed a great opportunity to demonstrate resilience. And like you say, almost pause that habitual nature to move those obstacles out the way for our loved ones, anyone we care about, right?
Fiona, your children are grown up now, aren't they? But talk us through your experience of these issues from a parent's perspective.
Well, I always believed in this tramline parenting. I described it. So you're just there, like tram lines either side, and you push them off gently and hope that they'll learn as they go along and just be there. Because I do think the support is very, very important, as you're saying, believing in them, knowing and giving them that bit of extra confidence. Well, just go for it. It'll be tomorrow. It'll be all right. Tomorrow's another day. You'll be fine if they get knocked back. So yes, I think, and I do think also in this sort of international context, there are people all around the world who are struggling with the same thing, and that is comforting as well. There are young people all around the world who've had the same issues about education, but equally there are young women and girls all around the world who aren't even lucky enough to get a primary school place. So that I think makes you think a bit, and that's one of our reasons for Think Women, is that if our international community can also to support young women and young girls into education, then that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Tramline parenting, I like that. I've heard it described as well as lifeguard parenting. You're on the edge watching and you can dive in if necessary. Carrie, tell us about you now and what's next, and when we might be able to buckle up with you at the controls.
Yeah, so I'm going to say I'm incredibly lucky. I am incredibly lucky. But the term lucky, especially in this context, does grate on me slightly, because I think I'm a true believer that we make our own luck. And had this not gone the way I'd planned or the way it has, I would have found another way, as we were discussing. So, however, I am incredibly lucky and incredibly excited to say that I start with my first airline as a first officer in just over 2 weeks' time.
Wow.
Yes.
Goodness.
Yes.
And you first latched onto this passion when you were, how old did you say? 5?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah. And so once you start that role, what then happens? What is your progression?
So we go through quite a bit of training. We have to get what's called a type rating, which is the equivalent of you having a driving license, but you want to drive a lorry, a HGV. Yeah. So you have to go and train on a HGV and then get that added to your license. Mm-hmm. This is the same. So they employ you on a certain aircraft, a form of Boeing or Airbus type aircraft, and that gets added to your license. So you have to self-fund that, which is around £30,000.
Wow.
Yeah, give or take, depending on airlines. So you pay that once you've got the job. That normally takes about 3.5 months. Mm-hmm. Full time. You don't get paid, obviously, whilst you're training. It's in the industry, people say it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But up until this point, I've heard that at every stage. Yeah, so yeah. I tend to, once again, it's a case of, okay, off we go. So yes, I'll get through that, and then you get put on the line is the terminology, which is where you reach a certain amount of hours experience, where you have an extra pilot up the front with you. You obviously fly with a captain anyway, but there'll be an extra pilot up there. So you'll be flying passengers by this point, but just like I say, with that extra backup. And then eventually you reach a point where you find out your final base. You're allowed out on your own as such. And yeah, that's then where you get told you're relocating to who knows right now. So
and then you need to ring Fiona and find out how to do that.
Yes, literally.
Well, that is fantastic. And it's been an absolute delight for me to hear your story. And as I say, we can't wait until we're buckled up in that seat and we hear your voice coming through the intercom. Good luck with the next few years. Fiona, do you want to finish up?
Yes, I would. And I'll just share, thank you both very much, and your insightful questions as ever, but Carrie for continuing the story which you started last year, and we'll include editorial and pictures and your social media details so people can follow up and you can find out how to contact Carrie yourself. So here's just a few pictures just to show what it was like a year ago. And there's Carrie in her uniform at probably one of the last face-to-face events held in London in March last year, and there she is in the middle of a discussion, roundtable discussion, and presenting. So thank you again for doing that last year.
Thank you for having me.
And so this is just to remind you that this webinar is part of Think Women, our contribution to International Women's Day for 2021. So we're sharing Carrie's story to inspire everyone, and young girls and women in particular, to go and follow their dreams. And she certainly exhibits some true grit. So well done. And also to those wonderful people who supported her. So please do dip into the resources on the Relocate Global website. Please do get involved with the Think Women community and share your stories, because that's what encourages people to go on and achieve great things. And we're especially interested in those who are going to take up a global role. So we wish you all the best, Carrie, and thank you very much, Jane, for all your help throughout this series. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.